Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining Metaverse Summit Roadshow, which is an online series of interviews with Metaverse entrepreneurs, investors, and beyond. Today, we are very, very happy to have one of the best entrepreneur I saw in the industry, Jonathan from Lighthouse. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the kind words, Ingzi. Super happy to be here, and thanks for all the work Metaverse Summit is doing for the space.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan. So I got to know you already for your previous life and career, right? So back then I was in Ubisoft, and you were still VC. Maybe we can jump into your personal story also later down the road in this roadshow. Maybe could you give us some brief introduction of what is Lighthouse?
Yeah. So Lighthouse is a search engine for the metaverse. So to put it quickly, we're basically putting one unified interface where people can search for their friends across virtual worlds. They can also search for places, events, any kind of experiences, and even creators, from one unified location. One of the team we saw back last year was that the space would grow in fragmentation. And back in November 21, there were maybe 15 to 25 Web3 worlds of potential. And now there's more than 150 different kind of virtual worlds of interest being built across the space. And this is the macro number, 150 worlds, but even within these worlds, most of them are UGC driven. So people either buy or sell or develop galleries that they acquire for free. And there's all kinds of experiences being built across all of them. And those experiences can be super different. Someone can build, a gaming interactive type of experience in Mona, and then the next person can build something very artsy, very unique. And those are all in the same ecosystem, but they're very different. And so what we're actually focused on is creating one place where metaverse interested people can search for everything, just like Google on the web, across the broader sense of the metaverse. And the last part, and then I'll kind of emphasize, is to us, social is very important. We saw the metaverse as the experience-centric web versus the information-centric web that we use every day. And what matters most with experiences is who you live them with. And so finding your friends is actually the main thing we expect people to do with Lighthouse. And so this social component is kind of very core to the product design and product thinking. And we've been around since January this year. We've raised a bunch of money, which is great. Now grow the team. We just launched our beta 3 weeks ago and have more than 40K signed up now, which is great. So it's moving along well. Building busy, but it's very fun. It's an amazing space and journey overall.
For sure. It's definitely a very intriguing and eye-catching pitch, right? On the website, the short pitch is a single portal to discover experiences and creators across the spatial web. That is very unique because you used also the word spatial web, which is actually kind of the topic that I'm digging into recently as well, spatial computing, spatial web. So what is your understanding of, the new era of spatial web? And then why do you think it's important to have this new type of search engine that is for experiences instead of, the one that we are familiar with, the recommendation algorithm or the indexing search engine as in the Web2 Google way?
Yeah, no, amazing question. And let's start up and then dive a bit deeper into some areas. So we've had the vision, like many people, that a growing percentage of your experiences on the web are going to push you into 3D spaces to do different kind of things, right? That's kind of the broader metaverse idea. Hopefully, a lot of it is browser accessible, so it's accessible from the web, from multiple devices, but more experiences are going to be 3D on the web. That's kind of the initial view. Landing places are going to replace landing pages. This experience when you're on Google Maps and you drop your little human and you're teleported somewhere. I think it's going to be something that's more frequent. It's going to happen in worlds, but it's going to happen on businesses' website natively. They're going to have their own Unreal, Unity experiences powered and accessible. So that's what we characterize as the spatial web. Is just a 3D kind of web. And there are many implications of that. I think the first one is what personally got me the most excited on the business from a technical standpoint. And it's this one. So the way the web is indexed by Google and other browsers and search engine is basically with crawlers and spiders, and they go through the DNS registry and they index every page is on the web so that they can become searchable. When it comes to 3D spaces, first of all, right now with the tech available, you cannot use crawlers, AI softwares to index in real time everything that's happening across all the virtual worlds. You just don't have the capability. There's still too much abstraction into it. So it just doesn't work. So you need to think about a new way to power a search engine, which is kind of exciting because new ways, new technology means there might be a green space for a startup to come in and emerge and try to do things differently. And the other path forward is actually quite similar to perhaps the open banking revolution, where basically banks had to share more and more data with fintechs so that fintechs could exist and provide better customer services. I think there's a real opportunity to partner directly with virtual worlds to fetch lots of the data that is currently powering the Lighthouse portal. So that's one. I think that the way you approach discovery in the spatial web is actually technically different because of the crawler slash bots limitation currently in place. Then diving a bit deeper into search, more specifically, and the difference between spatial web search and traditional kind of internet search. The first kind of big difference is the data accessibility, which I just discussed. You don't have open web servers, so you need to partner with worlds to access this data. The second one, which is a bit more abstract, but I'm going to try to share a bit of detail around it, is around data taxonomy. So when you search for something that is text-based, the smallest unit you can have in your query is actually a letter. You'll never have half a letter when you write something, and a letter is actually quite descriptive around what something is. You usually need like 3 to 10 to derive a word, and then with 2 words you're usually able to narrow down on lots of data points. When you think about worlds, you have basically an asset that's composed of thousands of polygons in a scene that's composed of millions of polygons or voxel. And so where does a query start or end, right? When you're searching for a ball, which type of ball? Many things can be described as a ball in many different contexts. And so the data taxonomy as to where does your query start and ends in the context of a 3D scene is actually quite different when you think about building kind of a search engine that allows you to search for that. So that's the second problem of spatial search. Another problem is information search and internet search, generally speaking, is actually usually quite descriptive. You're searching for something in information. When you're searching for something in the metaverse, because it's real time and interactive, usually the data perishability is actually quite high. A castle is going to be a pile of dust in a few seconds. This impacts search, right? And how long the data lives and is actually usable. Context is also super important. I might be sitting in a bench and I'm just sitting on the bench, but I might be sitting on the bench in a stadium. And then because I'm in a stadium, that changes actually the purpose of what I'm doing. I'm not just chilling, I'm actually watching something, which is different. So I would say the perishability and the context-driven nature of search is also quite different. So all this to say, when we're building our search capabilities, those are all stuff we're thinking about, and those are all things that clearly distinguishes the spatial web from the traditional web we use and love every day, which are all super interesting concepts to kind of think through, but they're going to be much more front and center to many people as we kind of keep on evolving towards that direction. So yeah, that was just some thoughts on it.
Fabulous. This is actually one of the products, or let's say projects, that touches a lot of different pain points of the current state of art of metaverse, right? We're talking about a open metaverse, meaning that maybe we need to have some standardization. You also mentioned the collaboration is very important. If you cannot fetch their data, you cannot actually so-called index them in Lighthouse, right? And also it touches different other pain points. So what are the current, either business mindset or technical challenges for building Lighthouse?
Yeah. So right now there's an interesting dynamic where we are in a crypto, I would say, bear market. And so I think if we step back about a year from now, there was a lot of purism around, building stuff in an open way, putting a lot of information on chain, using decentralized storage, and all those components that actually make an ecosystem decentralized. A lot of great intention, and I think many people inspired by what the early movers in the space like CryptoVoxel and Decentraland kind of actually did and pushed forward. What we've seen over the last year is actually a real emergence of the concept of Web 2.5, which are basically ecosystems that leverage part of the kind of crypto ethos around supporting NFTs. That's one part, perhaps being able to mint a space. But there's definitely a gradation in the level of commitment that different ecosystems are displaying towards building a open metaverse. So perhaps I could start very quickly around listing the elements I think are needed to build an open metaverse, and then trickle down into what we see in the space and then how that impacts us. So among the things that makes to us an open metaverse, there's 10, but I'm not going to list all of them. I guess the first one is use open source code whenever you can, obviously, so that people can reuse, remix, use open standards whenever you can, which I think in the gaming space has been quite the opposite, actually. Everyone has been pushing their own kind of API library, their own file formats. There's a real movement towards moving towards open standards, but that's obviously needed. Decentralized storage, I've mentioned. Then there's a bunch of other things. Browser accessibility is one. As soon as you need to be accessible to an app store, then you have like a 30% take rate on everything that you do. And then it becomes very hard to make the life of creators actually profitable, for them doing their craft in their different worlds. So there's quite a bunch of things. And I think what we're seeing now in the space is some worlds indexing on a few of those criteria more than a few others, which I think is fine. Hopefully with time, the key reason why I started Lighthouse was to push forward the space around a more decentralized, open kind of end state, thinking about my children, right? And thinking about what type of web I want them to interact with. And that's very, very important, not to overlook, even though, prices are not going up. Those are values and reasons why we're building things a certain way. And so I hope we're going to revert back to more of a Web3 native way of thinking about the metaverse personally, although I'm seeing kind of this clear trend towards letting go part of the stack, which is fine, but I hope we'll end up there. In terms of Lighthouse and how that influences us, I think at this stage, our value prop is interesting for many of them. They are all looking for ways to acquire user and drive traffic. This is what they're looking for. And so if you go and see them and basically tell them, look, you're going to have all your experiences listed in our platform, our portal, which you've seen is very kind of intuitive. I think that's a great pitch for them because it's basically free user acquisition, which is interesting, and new user acquisition, especially not only people that have heard about them, but people that have never heard about them. So far, we have about 20 virtual worlds or ecosystems kind of indexed on the portal, which is way more than anyone else. And so I think that with them, the discussion started as very much value driven. Hey guys, we should build this open metaverse thing. Some of them really bought into the vision. I think Sebastien from the Sandbox is one. He's an investor in the company as well. So really bought into it. Animoca is an investor as well. They made a bunch of intros, right? This is what they believe in as a future. But then a few others, it was more kind of ROI driven type of conversation, which I think is very pragmatic and accurate as well. Everyone has busy roadmaps, so you need to prioritize stuff. So yeah, discussions are going well. It's all great. I think people are doing stuff for different reasons, and at the end, it's going to be user value that prevails. But personally, if you ask me where my stand is, it's full blown hardcore, Web3 driven, open metaverse oriented.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the different learnings and also your vision around the open metaverse. So Lighthouse is also based on kind of a different emergence of technology, such as real time, real life data, 3D environment, virtual experiences, and all this are kind of driving also the creator economy, right? You're collaborating now with the 20 different ecosystem, and I'm sure there's going to be more and more. So how do you think creator economy evolved during the last couple of years? And then what do you think can be the future scenario, and maybe the Lighthouse role inside of this future scenario?
Yeah. So I think crypto and NFTs were one of the most marking moments in history for digital. It was the most marking moments in history for digital creators after kind of the creation of the internet. Digital artists, if you go back to 2020 and before that, they were working on their craft, but most, if not all of them, had to do contractual work. They were working for agencies, and they were basically not capable of focusing full time in a self-sustaining way on their craft, compared to other, types of arts. And I'm not saying that artists as a whole have an easy life. It's really the long tail kind of scenario where it's really concentrated at the top, who's making money, trying to become an artist. But I think NFTs changed the course of history for digital artists. I think it was 3 to 4 billion earned in royalties by artists on Ethereum last year. 40 billion bought in NFTs overall. That's quite significant for digital artists. And people think about NFTs as JPEGs, but it's much more than that. You can buy royalties, shares of royalties. You can invest in artists' song on Royal. There's quite a lot of things that you can do with NFTs. And when I think about creators, I see two clear, very important trends. The first one is people love to build UGC content in virtual worlds. When you look at the growth of Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite, it's obvious that designing fun spaces in those worlds with new tools, low code, no code tools, like everyone can actually do it. With AI now, everyone is seeing like Midjourney images and DALL-E images. But the next iteration of that is actually building a virtual world. And Mona and Webaverse, they both announced very cool stuff with AI, helping you build up your scenes. It's going to become so easy to build nice spaces. My guess, personally, is that the YouTubers, the profession that all the kids want to do when they grow up of the last decade, is going to be metaverse builder or game designer. I'm pretty sure my kid, when he's going to be, so he's 5 now, when he's going to be 13, the most sought after profession is going to be, either vloggers, so vloggers, or it's going to be game designers or metaverse builders. It's going to be so easy building all those tools, receiving your friends in your space. So more people are going to create. It's going to be easier to create. That's the first kind of leg. Second leg is now we have millions of people creating experiences, but on platforms like Roblox, right, where Roblox is taking a 75% cut on everything. So no one's making money. on Roblox, other than perhaps the top 20 applications developers. And it's not really Roblox's fault. Roblox, they have to pay a 30% cartel tax rate to the App Store, the Apple App Store. And then they're investing a lot in R&D, but they're burning 400 million of free cash flow every year. So it's not as if they were sitting on a pile of cash, right? They are not even generating free cash flow at this stage, even though they're taking such a huge cut. And I think it's obvious to me, actually. If you build worlds in Roblox and you like it, and you've earned 25% take rate, and then you start building something in Webverse or in the sandbox as an NFT, and you earn 95% of it, well, there's no way you're going back to Roblox. I think this next generation of people are going to experience NFTs. There's going to be more of them. Afterwards, it's going to be very hard to justify a use case to be building in those kind of previous end state ecosystem. So I think the creators are going to be empowered. They're going to be much more, and NFTs is going to be a core part of that. And I think we're going to look back and say, how come did the concept of digital property was so controversial? Like 70% of the people don't believe in it. Digital property, like those are two worlds. How come? I think we're going to be, very hard for us to rationalize how controversial this topic was, in 2022.
Yeah, the state of art of 2022. Well, it's kind of crazy, right? By reading all the metaverse advancement, the tech stacks, the creation, and the creator economy, as you mentioned, empowered by the AI tools, and by empowering the actual creators to actually have a bigger skin in the game, to allow them to at the same time create, but also have their impact in the space. So I'm very, very curious about one question in creative industry. So in the Web2 space, let's say we already have the problematic of how to recommend content, how to curate content. Of course, there are different models. In Google, maybe you have AdWord, you can have a better, let's say, SEO, search engine optimization, and different, so many elements that they are actually improving also along the years to have a better, more accurate, but also monetized curation. And also recent years, we have a TikTok who are recommending content based on algorithm, based on your preference. It's kind of like the new model that has been followed by a lot of different apps. What do you think is the future of, let's say, curation, and then what is curation in a Web3 way in comparison with the ones that I listed before?
Yeah, very topical question, and good question. So first of all, I should start by making kind of a shout out to my co-founder, Justine. So Justine is our CTO. She has a background in search, and she was leading actually the recommendation engine of a big search, publicly traded company. So she's been much more qualified than me to talk about all of this, but still I can share some thoughts, obviously. But yeah, first thing, which is kind of interesting when you think about the way algos are built out, is what they're trying to optimize for, right? It's always that question. There's many ways to build algos. There's many stuff you can fit into them, but the end thing you should always focus on is what is the optimizing factor? What are you trying to move towards? And then that's interesting, right? When you think about infinite scrolling feeds and dopamine hits, where basically you're capturing in real time the attention of someone. Are they going to swipe, once more? Can you fit, one more ad into that so that this person can stay, on the platform a bit longer? Many things have been kind of published around it, right? And it's impossible to. We are, our brains are mechanical thing. They're not, I'm not gonna say if they're spiritual or not, but they are very predictable in how they operate. And if you provide them with enough dopamine, you can, quite comfortably estimate what the reaction is going to be. And so what I want to say is it's impossible for me. So for me, it's impossible to not look at Twitter for a long, specific amount of time, because I'm just conditioned to it, and I just need that. And if I want to stop, I need to remove the app, because I know that if the app is on my phone, I'm gonna lose. I'm not stronger than the app. My willpower is not strong enough. So that creates, an interesting point. Do you need to protect people from themselves? How can you regulate algos? How can you really know what they're optimizing for? So that's the one kind of broad question. I guess there's a few interesting emerging ways to kind of tackle that. The first one, which I think is worth exploring, is actually enabling people to have a say in what factor the algo should be optimizing. I think Lens protocol from, which is tied to Aave, is actually quite interesting. So they've released this social Web3 social protocol, which is called Lens. One of the things that Lens enables you to do is actually put a weight on the different parameters that you want your algo to feed you. So you want something that's new. You want to discover more of the new stuff, or you want something that is preferred by your specific friends. You can start to play with a few of those filters, and in that regard, you're kind of the king of what's coming to you and what's being fed. Justine is actually a bit skeptical of that, saying she thinks you don't really have the control as much as the UI might make you think you do. So she thinks there is some dishonesty between the UI, the impression that you get, and what's happening behind, which is interesting. And again, she knows way better than me. Then another way, a company just went out yesterday. It's actually interesting. So I'm from Montreal, and we have a huge AI community in Montreal. It's kind of a real hub. And there's a company founded by an ex-founder of I actually have a blank. Element AI. So Element AI was one of the biggest AI companies. It was coming from Montreal, and one of the previous founder of that launched a new search company called Waverly, which is basically intended at providing you recommendation of stuff that you actually care for. And their approach is actually using a questionnaire to see what people want to optimize for via the questionnaire, and then based on this kind of primary input data, they can make better recommendation. So that's another way, right? Trying to capture a bit more data, and Facebook is actually, Meta is actually using part of that. So they're thinking about it as you are presented stuff in your feed. They're going to ask you from time to time, is this content relevant to you? Do you like it? Do you want to see more of it? And then it kind of keep on scrolling. So those primary input are trying to be captured more and more. So there's a few different directions that are interesting in how recommendations are built, how they are made, how people are actually more and more empowered to have a say into how they're coming. And those are all directions that I think are great. When I think about Lighthouse for us at this stage, to be super frank, I don't think there's a depth meaningful enough now in terms of Web3 native interesting experiences to visit for recommendation to play a key role as of now. There's just maybe 500, 700 very nice place I find are very interesting experiences. It's not a huge challenge to filter through in terms of recommendation yet, but I think it's going to come fast. And once we get there, I think it would be interesting to hear Justine tell us about how she thought about many of those future problems that come our way.
Yeah, we are very, very early for, well, the whole metaverse, of course, but also specifically for this curation question. We need to definitely encourage creator economy to create long tail experiences and content and population also inside of the metaverse, the diversity, right? So that we can index them and curate them and think about maybe in each stage what people actually want. Well, let's maybe redo another roadshow in 10 years. Let's see when your kid is going to be bigger, becoming a metaverse creator already. And then we'll see how can we create the huge and rich amount of content that we can't even imagine today. So maybe let's come back a little bit about you, right? You mentioned your amazing co-founder, Justine. And well, as I know, you previously was in the other side of the business, the VC side also, right? We have a lot of not only investors, but also builders in our community. Could you share with them some experiences and key learnings from both lives?
Yeah, no, it's cool, and this is where we actually kind of met, as you've said, where you were at Ubisoft, and I was at a fund called White Star Capital, which is a VC fund with basically offices around the globe, and back then I was sitting on both our crypto fund, which was not one of the first, far from it, but one of the early kind of crypto fund. As a fund, we've made actually our first crypto investment back in 2014. So that was, quite early, a company that went public about 2 years ago called Cefello. And also sitting on the kind of traditional, software side. So I used to do both at White Star. And yeah, it was an amazing experience to me. Obviously, it's being a VC is a huge, opportunity, right? You have the chance to meet amazing founder, hear their stories firsthand. You're empowered with, if you're at a firm that values your opinion, your decision and your view on the markets can actually influence huge sums of money, right? If there's a company that you really like, that you believe in, and you're able to convince, the rest of your team that this is a bet that they should make, then it has, tremendous impact on this company's trajectory and potentially kind of the future, right? If you help this company raise some money. So, from my own experience, maybe one thing I could say is there are many things that I learned in VC that were useful in my current role. And there are also so many things I had no clue about, where it really helped me to have Justine around, actually, someone that has been operating and leading a division and being into that space. So it's great. I think we have a great complementary on that level. A few things I could share, perhaps around what I learned becoming a founder that I perhaps underestimated. As a VC, you're very much into I would say, high-level strategic thinking. So trying to take a stance on the future of a space, trying to be very thorough in that, and then trying to make a guess on the founders, which I guess everyone has their own bias, and many VCs just end up investing in people that remind them of themselves. So one thing I knew when we were VC was that you wanted to invest in repeat founders, as much as you could. But now that I am a first-time founder, I realize, how important that actually is. I will be so much better at my second startup than I am now, and making so many dumb mistakes that I will not repeat, but I just need to learn from them. So I kind of internalize everything I was using as guiding principles as a VC. Now I really get them, right? It's different. It's not theoretical. I'm really into it, and I see like the mistakes I'm doing. But yeah, there's been kind of many things that I've learned. Mostly I would say around being ruthless on prioritization, around the fact that as a CEO, your main job is or one of your main jobs is to remove stuff from the roadmap as much as you can. Say, we don't need to build that. We don't need to build this. We can test this a bit earlier. Those are key learnings for me, and it's great to kind of go through that experience. So I think it's fine. Like doing the transition VC to entrepreneur, many folks have done it. It can work. It can also be a catastrophe. So we'll see how it works. Maybe we talk about it in a few years. But at least from my end, I love it. I think the life of an entrepreneur is so fulfilling, and it really gets you. So it's great.
That's amazing and actually very humble answer from outsiders' point of view like mine. You guys are doing an amazing job. From the ideation phase, value proposition, and also product development, following the roadmap. Looking forward also to the future updates. So could you share with us some sneak peek around, what is gonna come for this year or in the future for yourself and for Lighthouse.
Yeah, no, thanks. So the beta is out now. It's a closed beta. So people that want to participate in it, they need to join our waitlist, which was shared in your newsletter. So thanks again for that. People listening to that, if you received in your inbox the Metaverse Summit newsletter, the link towards accessing the beta is there. It's also pinned on our Twitter. So if you want to access it, it's easy. And then it's going to be closed until Art Basel in Miami in December, where we're going to have our launch party. So it's going to be the public launch party. The key feature that is being built now that should be there then is the Find Friends feature, enabling people to find their friends. So right now on the portal, you can find experiences across all those worlds, which is cool. You can find, I think we have over 1,000 people now, but at least hundreds of creators, builders, people that have built stuff across these different worlds. And then you'll be able to also, find your friends, which is kind of core to us. Then the next things that are on the roadmap are actually quite exciting, and I'm super pumped for them. A lot of it is going to be around making the search experience as social as we can. I'm really doubling down on that, because I think you can't slap a search bar on a site and call yourself a metaverse search engine, because people just won't know what to search for. You had portals before search engine on the web, right? People thought that portals were the internet. They needed to be educated as to what was there. And then once they got it, then perhaps you could abstract away some of the display you were doing of the things that are actually within. But in my perspective right now, we have a huge onboarding education task to accomplish as a company. And I'm excited around all the social cues and social way we'll be able to mix inside the portal for people to really feel like the metaverse is not an empty place. I think what many people think when they interact with Web3 worlds is this sense of emptiness, and the world is empty, I'm alone, which is the furthest thing you want from a metaverse experience. You actually want it to be social. You want it to be shared. And so solving this kind of belonging, not feeling empty, bringing people to the space where people are, making them able to find their friends, making them able to build groups of explorers to go somewhere. Those are all things that are quite top of mind for us. And this is what I'm the most excited about. How can we succeed in making the metaverse on the Web3 side a less kind of empty place through discovery? So it's abstract. I'm sorry for that. But you just need to join the beta and stay up to date on Lighthouse, and you'll see concretely what we do.
Yeah, a portal and a search engine to Metaverse. Well, if you ask me what I have as image in mind, it was very, very abstract. And also problem-solving empty world syndrome in, the current state of art of Metaverse. And actually, I like when you say finding friends in the Metaverse. It's a feature, as you mentioned, but it's kind of also the vision and the goal of why we're building this whole thing, right? So very, very happy to hear all your sharings and insights, and sneak peek also of Lighthouse. Looking forward to maybe having another catch up of how you guys are developing the product and the future of a lot of different topics: creator economy, search engine, curation, etc., etc. Thank you again, Jonathan.
Thanks so much, Ingzi, and see you soon in real life. Take care. Bye bye.
See you soon. Bye bye.